Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I want to again commend you and our Vice Chairman and the staff for all the work that you put into this hearing, especially this panel. This is very helpful to us and plowing ground that the joint inquiry did not get into. And I just want to make sure that you recognize how important that is, and we're very grateful for your time, gentlemen, and your help and the good work that's gone into setting this hearing up. General Arnold, you were there that day, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you had been there how long?
I'd been the commander since December the 19th, 1997, so I've been there for some time. I was approaching the end of my tour.
Let me keep you on the hot seat as Jamie Gorelick has put you there and ask you a question about military threats to the United States and the way we try to get intelligence as the world changes from a Cold War to terrorist threats that can come at us from almost anywhere at any time in nimble, quick, dynamic ways. Were you aware at all of the fatwa that Osama bin Laden had put out in February of 1998 that said that he wanted to kill Americans, all Americans, everywhere he could, whether that was in the Middle East or in the United States of America?
The answer to that is yes, and we had briefings that, our own briefings, I think we could even provide a date back to 1998 where we called Osama bin Laden the most dangerous man in the world. And our focus with the demise of the Soviet Union, Warsaw Pact, in accordance with the Hart-Rugman study, was that we felt like the greatest threat to the United States would come from a terrorist, a rogue nation, or I should say a nation of concern.
And then were you aware of George Tenet's statement in December of 1998 that the United States was at war with Osama bin Laden and al-Qaeda?
I don't recall that, but I suppose I was generally aware of that the United States was at war with terrorism around the world.
One of the frustrations is that in looking at this issue very carefully over the last year and a half, that a lot of our people responsible for these kinds of things did not know of George Tenet's declaration or did not know of Osama bin Laden's declaration. If Vladimir Putin had made that declaration as the leader of a nation state, we would probably all be aware of it. If Kim Il-jung of North Korea or Saddam Hussein had made those statements in '98, we would probably all be aware of it. And that combined with the intelligence that was coming in over the decade of the 1990s that pointed to planes as weapons, we need to look back not to blame anybody, but to try to make sure that this kind of information can get into the right hands in the future so that we can respond nimbly and quickly to this very nimble and quick threat that is directed directly at the heart of America. And I would be very, very attentive to any suggestions you would have now that you've stepped away from that most important job that you took on for our country and for our people and performed very well, I'm sure. What do we need to do to break down these barriers of communication and increase the exchange of information so that we can respond quickly to this threat that will continue to come at us?
Yeah, Mr. Commissioner, I think I've stated that earlier what I thought we have done in terms of the intelligence community and awareness. I think we are at a greater awareness today than we ever were before. I would leave that up to perhaps General McKinley, not trying to duck the question, but I think I've answered that pretty much before.
Well, if you think of more specific answers, please provide those for the record. Let me ask you a question about the time difference between the scrambling and the battle stations and getting airborne. The F-15s at Otis, which was about, what was the total time frame there for the F-15s at Otis?
I believe that from the time they were notified to scramble, it was 6 minutes.
6 minutes.
Yes, sir.
Notified, scrambled, and then airborne.
Notified, scrambled, and airborne, I believe that was 6 minutes. Is Colonel Scott, is that,
So a total of,
are you not talking of, no, they were on battle stations.
Right.
Because the Northeast Air Commander had put them on battle stations. But once we said scramble them, I believe it was 6 minutes.
and then comparatively for the F-16s at Langley, what was the total time it took to,
Again, if I
6
can look
minutes.
at our data here, I believe it was, they were reported airborne at 9:35, and I think we would show that we actually,
We got first radar data at 9:30. I believe they were ordered to scramble at 9:24. The 9:35
9:24.
report is
Yeah, correct,
when they were
correct.
reported to have been airborne.
6 minutes.
6 minutes again?
And these fighters, sir, have up to 15 minutes to get airborne. And it's very intricate, as Secretary Lehman knows, to get an airplane without anybody in it started, cranked, inertial line to the runway, get a clearance, get in the air. This 6 minutes is exceedingly quick.
So at 9:35, those F-16s are airborne.
They were airborne.
I think they were airborne at 9:30,
9:30.
actually, and they were reported airborne at 35. I'll correct my error here if I could, please.
Okay. You were in the room when Secretary Mineta talked a little bit about arriving at the White House at about 9:20, and then overhearing a conversation at about 9:24, 9:25 between the Vice President and a young aide, where he inferred that there was already an order in place for a shoot-down, and he assumed it was for American Airlines 77. So sometime even before 9:20, there was an order in place that he overheard in the Presidential Executive Operations Center that had some exchange between, I assume, the Vice President, the President, and maybe the Special Ops, the Situation Room, and they had determined that they would have the authority communicated to somebody to shoot down American Airlines Flight 77. Were you at all aware of anything sometime after 9:15 or 9:20 to shoot down American Airlines Flight 77?
I was never aware of any order given to shoot down American Airlines 77.
So nothing was ever conveyed to you by the White House or by the FAA administrator or by the Secretary of Transportation on Flight 77?
That's correct.
So the only time that you ever received information on a shoot down was on flight number 93, and that was,
After the fact.
excuse me?
After the fact.
That was after the fact, and that was after 10 o'clock.
That's correct.
And that was from who?
It was from Cheyenne Mountain, I assume from the commander of
you're-
North American Air Defense Command.
Your assumption is that the White House communicated that to Cheyenne Mountain,
They
and then
communicated-
Cheyenne Mountain communicated
Through
that
the
to
National
you.
Military Command Center, correct.
And when you had that after the fact, as Commissioner Hamilton asked you, that was at what time?
I believe the time, we do not have a record in this. I remember the time being somewhere around 10:05, but we do not show that in this.
And we'll try to find that accurately and depicted for the record, sir, because that's probably an important time you'd like to have.
I think it's critically important. Colonel Scott, were you in on any of that information about the presidential authority to shoot down Flight 93?
No,
So
sir. At the time, I was upstairs with the crisis action team.
And General McKinley?
I was trying to get out of the Pentagon, which was on fire, sir.
So General Arnold, with respect to this decision, if you can get any more details on the timing and any information on Flight 77, that would be very helpful to us. Thank you again for your great